So, Macbeth's famous final lines in Act 5, Scene 5, reveal the complete sense of dislocation in the relationship between him and Lady Macbeth. As she dies out of sight and has to have this news broken to him, and that he seems emotionally numb in response. He doesn't feel anything, first of all, in response to this news. Also, Lady Macbeth's death offstage contrasts with the violent immediacy of Lady Macduff's death in Act 4, Scene 2, when she's brutally murdered on stage. I think to keep us, from having any sense of pity with Lady Macbeth. Macbeth opens by saying, "I have almost forgot the taste of fears." He seems here to be experiencing some kind of sensory confusion, which suggests to us that he may be losing his mind. But he appears to have also lost the ability to react emotionally. The taste of fears, he can't remember what they feel like, as a consequence of having absorbed too much horror and violence. He then says, "The time has been, my senses would have cooled." He would have grown cold to hear a night shriek, and my head of hair would, at a frightening story, rouse and stir as if life were in it. He imagines his hair standing up on end at this dismal treatise, a frightening story that he imagines hearing. He said, "In the past I would have been shocked." This recalls his lines in Act 1, Scene 3, where he says, he's imagining killing the king, and he says, "That suggestion whose horrid image doth unfix my hair," which shows that he's lost his humanity and ability to feel. It directly reflects on this lost sense of emotional response. He's numb inside and seems dead. And then he says here, "I have supped full with horrors." So he picks up on his own earlier metaphor about tasting fears and imagines having eaten a full kind of banquet of horrors. He's eaten too much horror. Direness, which is horror, familiar to my slaughterous thoughts, cannot once shock me. It cannot once start me. So he's no longer shocked by horror in any way. Seaton, his attendant, enters and he says to him, "Wherefore was that cry?" "The queen, my lord, is dead," and breaks the news to her. And then he says, "She should have died hereafter." Now there's a great ambiguity about this line, because it can mean she should have died sooner or later. She should have died at some point, which seems kind of indifferent, as if he's not even bothered about the death of his own wife. Or it seems as if it could also mean she should have died later, at a later time, with a better chance to express grief. So it's an inappropriate time for her to die, because he has no time to express grief, because there is an invading army about to come for him. And then he says, "There would have been a time for such a word." And he means there when death might have had meaning for him. He here shows that he's unable to process the significance of her death. There would have been a time for such a word. It no longer means anything. And here are his famous lines, which I'll read it all in once. "Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to the last syllable of recorded time. And all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death. Out, out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing." And so this is a reflection on the meaninglessness of life. He begins here by imagining the future, relentlessly turning into the past. He says, "creeps in this petty pace, in this trivial speed, from day to day." So tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this slow way from day to the last syllable of recorded time, to the last part of our memory of the past. So what he's describing here is the future relentlessly turning into the past, imagining his own future disappearing before him. He's seeing his life almost flashing before his eyes and becoming history. And he says this, all our yesterdays, the past, have lighted fools the way to dusty death. So all of his previous life has lighted idiots the route to a meaningless death. So everything he's gone through has lit the way to a completely meaningless physical um, death, completely empty of emotional significance for others. He's reflecting here on the fact he's left nothing. He's left no friends, no people behind, no legacy. He's only created destruction. And then he says, out, out, brief candle. He's talking here about the source of light and life. This is a comparison to the source of life. But it's the fact that he uses a candle is symbolic, I think, to light up the darkness of life. And it mirrors this desire that he has earlier on in the stage where he says, stars, hide your fires, let not light see my black and deep desires. He doesn't want, his understanding here is of his own life as having been dark, and actually his own life being the shadow cast by this candle rather than the light from the candle itself. And that's what he then says here. Life's but a walking shadow. And he uses three metaphors here for life. He's already said the brief candle of the source of life. And he uses a walking shadow, a poor player, which is a bad actor, and then a tale told by an idiot. So life is all three of these different metaphors. But the first one, a walking shadow, suggests that life is a moving shadow. So it's both dark and evil, and suggests that our life is in some way destined to do wrong. We're born to commit acts of atrocity and immorality. And that it's also fundamentally a poor imitation of real significance. It's just a walking shadow of something significant. So it's the shadow of the real thing. There's no real reality about life itself. And that means the real thing is probably the heavenly form that he knows he now can't look forward to because he's going to hell if he believes in God. He then uses this second metaphor, that life is a bad actor, it's a poor player. And it struts and frets his hour upon the stage. Strutting and fretting, though, are kind of, are antithetical. This is antithesis. Because strutting seems to be the sign of confidence. But fretting is the sign of anxiety. So they seem to suggest oppositional concepts here. There's both false confidence and pointless fear define the experience of life as meaningless. We're just actors, wandering around pretending to be confident and expressing pointless anxiety in this hour upon the stage, as if our own life is this transitory, temporary hour that we have to live, and then is heard no more. So there's no legacy after death if you're just an actor that struts for an hour. No one cares what happens to you. And this is his own anxiety about his lack of influence, his lack of a legacy, his lack of children. All of the things that we see in Macbeth, interestingly. He then says it is a tale told by an idiot. Life itself, in this third metaphor here, is a story told and shaped by someone stupid, an idiot, and full of empty emotions and gestures, but ultimately meaningless. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing, meaning absolutely nothing. It's full of sound and fury, which, in terms of sound, mirrors struts and frets. So you have the S sound of sound and struts, and then the F sound of frets and fury, suggesting both noise and anger. So we have the sound sort of building up into this sort of loud noise of rage in the final lines of this little passage in the play, which is so crucial to revealing Macbeth's inner conflict. And it's deeply dark and bleak, his nihilistic representation of life here.